Life for All presents Daily Food Series Genesis, the Beginning. Title of Book 2, The Creation of Man, by Pedro. Week 3. On the seventh day, God rested from all the work which he had done. Friday, holding firmly to the Word. Read with prayer. Therefore, we must give the more earnest heed to the things we have heard, lest we drift away. Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1. God made man a little lower than the angels, and crowned him with glory and honor, appointing him over the works of his hands. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 7 and 8. Therefore, God did not subject all things only to Christ, but also to us, for we were united with the Lord and are part of his body. The man Jesus, just like us, was made lower than the angels, but nothing is outside his dominion. He was perfected through suffering to become the author of our salvation. When we believed in him, our spirit was saved, and today we are going through the process of the salvation of our souls. With our souls transformed by the divine life, we will be able to subject all things to Christ. The death of Christ opened the way for us to be brought into glory. But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels, for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, might taste death for everyone. For it was fitting for him, for whom are all things, and by whom are all things, in bringing many sons to glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. Hebrews chapter 2, verses 9 and 10. Satan thought himself indispensable for God to be able to govern over the creatures of the universe. That is why he longed to be joint king with him. However, that place had already been reserved for Christ, as revealed in the book of Psalms. Yet I have set my king on my holy hill Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, "You are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will give you the nations for your inheritance, and the ends of the earth for your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron, and you shall dash them to pieces like a potter's vessel." Psalm 2, verses 6 through 9. Since God appointed his son as king, and Satan did not attain that place, he rebelled and still today incites the nations to break ties with God and with his anointed. The rulers utter arrogant words against the Creator, but one day they will all be put to shame. Why do the nations rage, and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, "Let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us." He who sits in the heavens will laugh, and the Lord shall hold them in derision. Then he shall speak to them in his wrath, and distress them in his deep displeasure. Psalm 2, verses 1 through 5. Unlike Satan, Christ loved righteousness and hated lawlessness. Therefore, God anointed him with the oil of gladness. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 9. Today, Christ waits, seated at the Father's right hand, until the Father puts his enemies under his feet, with the cooperation of the church. In this mission, the angels are at our service. In light of such great responsibility, we must hold firmly to the word we have heard. Hebrews chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. In this way, we will bring the government of Christ to the earth. Those who follow the word closely have witnessed miracles, signs, and wonders. This proves that God is working through the Holy Spirit. To carry out the Father's will, we need to be filled with all the fullness of God. This happens when the Word dwells in our hearts. Thus, we are rooted and grounded in love. Therefore, fulfilling the Lord's desire is not an individual work. We need one another, as Paul teaches us in Ephesians. May be able to comprehend with all the saints what is the width and length and depth and height, to know the love of Christ which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. Ephesians chapter 3, verses 18 and 19. By living the church life intensely, immersing ourselves in the Word, shouting war cries, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, we will be filled with the truth, sanctified, and full of divine life. When we are filled with the holy nature and living the divine reality, Christ will be all in all and will govern the earth. This will not be merely an external government, using laws to compel everyone to submit, but an organic government. From that point on, there will be no possibility of rebellion, for Christ will be all in all. In heaven and on earth, everything will be subject to him. If we fight for the kingdom with our own weapons, it will be an inglorious struggle. We do not battle against men, but against principalities and powers, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. How can we fight on earth against those who are in the air? You may have seen Russian or Ukrainian soldiers using drones to attack the enemy army. There is no place to hide nor time to flee. It is an uneven battle because those in the air have the advantage. In the spiritual war, God does not want us to use the weapons of the flesh, our effort, or our ability. That is why he gives us the word, because it has the power to destroy strongholds and nullify sophistries, as it is written, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down strongholds, casting down arguments." 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 4 and 5. Arguments is logismos in Greek, and that is to walk by logic. We use our reasoning to fight, we will lose. The best strategy is to use the word. In this way, every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and every thought will be brought into captivity to the obedience of Christ.